Hello, guys. How you two doing?
Very good,
Not
thanks.
bad,
How are you?
thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Now, I suppose let's talk about Stardust. I mean, bringing David Bowie to the big screen is such a monumental task. I mean, were you both nervous about just doing such a huge thing?
To be honest, it's a daunting thing, but I tried to suppress any um, any real nerves going into it because I just I believed in Gabriel's vision and the purpose of our story, and I just thought as soon as I was committed to doing it, I mean that we were tentative in kind of figuring out can will this work? We did we did some makeup tests and we shot some scenes before we went into production just to kind of try things out and see how it is. I mean, everybody's nervous before any film because there's so many variable things, and independent film is it's so hard to get things made. It's so difficult. There's so many moving parts and dates and money and all these things. But once we were committed to doing it, I just got a very singular focus on, we're gonna do this, it's gonna happen, and what is the best way. It's not helpful for nerves to get the best of you in any creative process. So I try and kind of just stay really focused. So I tried not to let the fact that it was David Bowie make me more nervous than I would be on any other project.
Yeah, I think one of the things that was quite, in a way, quite liberating was to have made the decision that this was about just such a defined, short, brief window of his life, and it was also about a chapter of his life that most people didn't seem to know anything about, and so, and it's also about David at a point in his life, before that real flush of fame, and so before he became all the kind of David Bowies that most people have in their mind, before he was any one of those alter egos like, Ziggy, Thin White Duke, or Aladdin Sane, or any of those others. And so I think that that combined with strangely not having the music took some pressure off because it gave us a space to kind of try and dig a bit deeper into who this young man was setting out at this, on his at this point of his career.
As a musician, Johnny, do any of your real life experiences mimic Bowie's? And if so, how did you incorporate them and use them in your performance?
Yeah, it's funny. Before starting the whole project, I thought we couldn't be more different in our approaches and in our experiences and things like that. But actually, the more I looked, the more common ground I found I mean, just the fact of having a common experience of I know what it's like to turn up to a half empty room and try and win people over who don't know my music yet, and I know what it's like to turn up in America without the right paperwork and try and and be grilled by immigration and all that stuff. But also generally the process of being an artist and just that thing of believing in yourself and what version of myself do I present today, and doing the whole kind of PR thing which he's he's doing in the film. Um, but it's funny. I mean, it was amazing. I hadn't really put two and two together, but he's on the same. I was on Vertigo, which is his Mercury Records, which is part of nowadays Vertigo is part of Mercury. But I was on Mercury for my first album, Same as David, and that thing of kind of hearing from the label that they like this, but they don't like this, and actually they're going to drop you, and actually they think it's all shit. Just the bullshittery around being on major labels, and if you're not, you know, my experience of it was that I was promised the world when we were signed and told, you're a career artist and you can sell 2 records for your first album, but don't worry, we believe we're just going to take who you are and take it to more people, and over the years people will discover you, and after you do sell only 2 records, they're like, oh yeah, you better write a radio hit single quick or you're out of here kind of thing. And it's just that those shifting sands that David was experiencing. He thinks he's an artist with integrity, and he is from the off, and he's trying to kind of prove that point by writing quite obscure songs in that first record, and then of course it doesn't land because he hasn't earned the audience or the credibility or the space to make these kind of more profound, dark kind of statements. And so that first record is kind of misfiring. Well, not the first record, but The Man Who Sold the World, the album that he's supposed to be promoting at this point. And I've been in exactly that position with records, my early records. So I completely knew what that was like, amongst other things. And just the thing of stepping out in front of the crowd, really, I think, and being able, having an actor who can play songs and sing to an audience, I think was really helpful, that I was really doing that.
Johnny originally toured with the idea of not taking on the role of David Bowie, and obviously, luckily for you, he is now David Bowie. What do you think it is about Johnny that makes him so perfect for the role?
Well, I think it's just what Johnny was saying, really. It's being able to connect emotionally with the experience of playing to a half-empty room, not quite knowing yet who you are musically, at the sort of start of your career. But also, I just felt so blessed to be able to work with Johnny because he is a musician, because he could, as you say, perform those songs, because he's just such, has such incredible charisma, which is the thing that, obviously David had. So that all of those things, Johnny's, incredible sort of, such finely calibrated, for me, it was such sort of finely calibrated performance. And so, yeah, I just felt blessed to have somebody who could really, invest so much emotionally in the role.
Thanks.
Naturally, taking on such an iconic figure like Bowie, there is going to be some level of backlash. How does it make you both feel personally to see the resistance from these few people about the film?
Yeah, I think basically, I think because this movie came on sort of, it followed movies like Bohemian Rhapsody and Rocket Man. It was just this automatic assumption that this was going to be one of those movies, only in this case without his music, and so, and it was never ever going to be one of those movies. I'm personally, they're perfectly good movies, but it's not a kind of film that I would have been interested to make. I had no interest in doing a spin through his greatest hits. A sort of jukebox movie was not, it was never for me going to be something that I would have really been that interested in making. I think it's much more interesting to me to be able to take this tiny moment in his life and dig a bit deeper. And so I think a lot of the backlash from the sort of hardcore Bowie fans, if you like, was partly, based on this sort of false expectation that it would be one of those kind of movies. I think that, to be honest, the American trailer, I think probably in a way didn't help because it didn't position it quite as what I think the film really is, and so Vertigo have done a great job cutting a trailer that I think is much closer to what the film really is. It's much closer to the heart of the film.
I always knew that this would be, making this film would create a strong dialogue, and that I knew there'd be resistance to it, and I wanted to take, I think there's no point in not taking risks artistically, and this was a big risk, but one that I really wanted to take, and I wanted to take it because of my confidence in Gabriel and his vision for the film, and the collaboration that we were finding with each other. I just knew that we were doing this very sensitively and respectfully, and that was enough for me. And the backlash really has been from people who haven't seen the film. There was a bit of a kind of Twitter storm about the idea of the film from a trailer that
the American trailer.
Yeah, the American trailer, which positioned the film perhaps in the wrong kind of framework. but I think that's why I'm really excited for people to see it, because I think it will speak for itself. And I really don't mind people having a feeling one way or the other, but I don't think the thing I would really argue strongly against is the idea that this should be sort of cancelled or something like that, because we have the right as storytellers to tell the story, and actually it's an important story to tell, and it would be an important story for any music fan, artist, Bowie fan to hear. I feel like it's a responsible story that we're telling, and so I really don't mind there being a dialogue around it at all, and or a backlash. But I think a lot of it is kind of uninformed at the moment. But hopefully the film will start to speak for itself.
I mean, the other thing to say quickly is that you know, I think a bit of the backlash was also this notion that because we didn't have the music rights, that we shouldn't have made the film. You know, there's never been any specific objection to the film being made from, you know, that we've been, you know, made aware of that. And I think that I think the idea that you can only make a film about a public figure with the blessing of him or his, you know, or his estate, I think is wrong. You know, I mean, you know, Rocket Man and Bohemian Rhapsodies are, you know, one of the reasons why they are quite different films is because they were obviously made with, you know, the support of those musicians and that estate, you know. But anyway, I don't know. It's I don't think, you know, yeah, I think we've got a right as filmmakers, you know, and artists to make a film about, which is, you know, very much intended as a sort of love letter to that artist. You know, it's not, you know, as Johnny said, it's something that we treated very delicately and we wanted to make sensitively, you know.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Thank you very much for sharing that with me, and, you know, thank you for talking to me. That's all we got time for.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you so much.